My mom is probably the most compassionate soul I've ever known. When in doubt, be kind. Because according to her, kindness doesn't cost us a thing.
ये कभी डाउट आता था कि मैं कुछ कर भी पाऊंगी। आपके परिवार में डाउट, हार्डवर्क बहुत करती है बेचारी, लेकिन ये कभी कुछ कर पाएगी कि नहीं कर पाएगी।
I had a lot of self-doubts, tons of self-doubts. I think वो जो कहते हैं imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I've suffered with that imposter syndrome for a long part of my life. मतलब जितना मैंने मेहनत किया है, मेरी मॉम मेरे को आके बोलती है बेटा अभी कम कर दो, ठीक है, like go to sleep now. So I think younger self को मैं यही कहूँगी कि maybe you shouldn't have doubted yourself so much.
So hello everyone. It's another podcast, another day, another guest with us today. And thank you so much for the comments which you shared with us the last time. And we really take encouragement from all the comments that you send us because it helps us improve. And it also helps us ask more and more questions which are not only relevant but also interesting. And that is what we'll continue doing that. Today, we have Lolly Vadashri with us. She is the CHRO of Datamatics Business Solutions. I've had a very, very interesting conversation with her earlier before this podcast. As you know that I always do that with my guests because it just helps me understand and then ask more and more relevant questions and interesting questions. So we have had that, but I will not dwell into that right now. I would like to welcome Lolly today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
I mean, I should tell everyone, like I just mentioned, that we had a great conversation the last time. In that, I was speaking more than she was. And we wanted to hold that for the podcast today so that she can share her side of the story. And we are really happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure is all mine, Abhijit. Thank you so much for having me here.
Great, great. So, Lolly, let me just kick off the whole podcast with, like I mentioned, that we love to hear about stories of people who have, significantly achieved in their life. And the story is not just about the professional story, right? It is also their personal journey because somewhere our professional journey is linked to the personal journeys that we have had in the past, we're currently having, so many ways that gets impacted. Tell us about that, how your childhood was, what were you doing, what were your aspirations really? As a child, did you have aspirations? Did you have very clear goals or that you were all over the place? Because either is good for us.
Right. I think like most kids, I was also all over the place. So yeah, so let me start with saying that so my parents essentially migrated from Kerala. My dad was the one who moved to Mumbai first, Bombay then. And he was working with a pharma company in Mumbai. And he got married, I think, within a couple of years. And my mom was the first time, when she got married and the first time she came to Mumbai. And I think I grew up in a typical middle-class home where I have an older sister and a younger brother. So the typical middle-born kid who is sandwiched between sort of two brilliant and intelligent siblings. So as the middle-born, I was very weak at maths. Okay. In fact, I used to despise maths as a subject during my growing up years. And because I did not like maths, and I think it may have been something to do with the fact that either I could not understand the concept and I didn't have a particular liking for the maths teachers. But conversely, I loved languages. I loved Hindi, Marathi, English. And to date, I consider my Hindi teacher as my favorite teacher. I mean, she's the first person who comes. So that helped me, in a way, develop my love for languages. But when you have an older sister who's a topper in school, you're like, constantly worrying that, you are doing something which is good enough to, so that your teachers don't end up telling you, oh, you're not good enough, your sister is so brilliant and so on. I mean, I love my sister and I think a lot of who I am is shaped because of her. But nevertheless, it was always trying to keep up to the fact that I don't just end up being, just another average student. So I worked very hard. I think my entire school life, I remember I worked very hard to make sure that I am at least in those, within the first 10 ranks, right? So while my sister was a topper, and I loved that fact, but I tried to really make up. So a lot of hard work. And I think in a typical middle class household, some of the values that we grew up with, and I think for me, they've been in a way transformational, so to speak. Like my mom was a homemaker throughout. And one thing she instilled in both my sister and me was, you've got to really study well, do well for yourselves, be financially independent, no matter what, right? And so much so that she encouraged us to. So it was not a kind of a nagging way that she was encouraged. It was more of encouragement, right? She would not let us do any work at home. She's like, don't worry, all that will be taken care of. You guys focus on studies. And I think for me, those things have, to date, right, in my life, I hold them very, very close, that it is important. And, even as part of my professional journey, I keep saying this. But nevertheless, going back to my childhood years, I think some of the other things, of course, are values of, my mom is probably the most compassionate soul I've ever known.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And for me, I think that's something which I hold close to my heart in terms of the fact that, her simple mantra, which if you translate in English, translates to, when in doubt, be kind. Because according to her, kindness doesn't cost us a thing.
Correct.
So everything that we do, every individual that we deal with, when we're able to deal with compassion, it opens up a whole lot of, and I think that for me paved a lot of ways later on when I got into my HR journey. Another aspect which, again, I hold very dear, again, coming from my mom, is the fact that wherever you are, whatever you do it to the best that you can. So, have a kind of a service mindset. So everything that we do, she believes we are serving people in some form or the other. And that, again, for me has gone a long way in terms of saying that we are able to, so whatever, those simple values, which I now look back as things which were in a way life-changing. Again, from my dad, I think I picked up in terms of to be fearless of sorts. So he would keep instilling in us that, having the courage of conviction, much like that little boy in the Emperor's New Clothes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So his funda is largely that if you're in the right, speak up, no matter what, no matter where. And that is something. So as a kid, I was a very, very introverted kid. I still consider myself to be an introvert till date. But I think when it came to speaking up, or when it came to standing up for yourself, having the courage of conviction, I think I've had countless instances in my both personal and professional life where I've not backed off, right? And I think it's an invaluable this. The other thing is also in terms of being fair. Being fair no matter what. So for me, I think, so if I have to largely look at those growing up values, I would say compassion, kindness, and of course, being fair. These are a couple of things which I really hold good, very close to my heart. And I think a whole lot of, if I were to put it in terms of being a typical middle class family, there were limited means. But when I look back, I think other than studies, which I didn't particularly enjoy, and largely because of mathematics as a subject, I think I had a pretty normal childhood, in the sense, a good childhood. I have a lot of happy memories, even with the limited means, right? We could not have afforded a very fancy this, but it didn't really matter. We were happy. So I think that's one of the other things which I have believed in life, that, in life you've got to, wherever you're planted, just bloom, no matter what the circumstances are, right? So yeah, I think that pretty much in a way sums up how I've spent a good part of my childhood growing up years. And I remember after I finished class 10, I actually took up commerce, thinking that, okay, I'm no good to become an engineer, I had no interest in medicine. But one thing I remember in my, as a childhood, since you asked about aspirations, because I loved some of my language teachers, I aspired to get into teaching, okay? I used to think that it would be fantastic to be teaching, and that something fascinates me till date. I think some of my best moments are when I'm actually facilitating a training workshop, conducting So I think that stays with me. And I took up commerce, but I didn't realize that, okay, this is yet again got to do with numbers. So of course, once I finished my graduation, and then at that was a stage in my life where I thought, okay, I'm done with studies. I just want to get on into a job and, be in a career, so to speak. So I was not sure where I'll get in, to be very honest. I think I got into HR accidentally, and I was actually keen on getting into software development. That was primarily because my sister was a BE computer science, and I had done a 1-year aptech course thinking that, I can also be the next. But in hindsight, when I look back, I'm glad I didn't get in there, because I would have been probably a disaster at it. So I got into HR accidentally. And when I got in there, I think I actually started liking the fact that I'm interacting and, you're able to be of help to people. And that's when I, went on to do a couple of courses later on. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were an introvert child, right? And today you have achieved so much. Tell me, how did this being an introvert change?
Mm-hmm.
Did you really think that you have changed today and you are no longer an introvert, or that you are an introvert still, but you have managed to cope with that and still be successful out there?
Yeah, so I think I would consider myself as a born introvert, though many people, when I'm actually interact with them, they can't really believe that side of me. I think as part of my work, the way I see Abhijit, that in a way influenced me in a lot of ways is that, when you are in the HR field, you're talking to people through the day in some form or format or the other. And so when I'm with people and addressing an issue, so let me put it this way. In my professional life, people may consider me to be a total extrovert.
Okay.
But personally, people who know me know that I take time to make friends. Mm-hmm. The few friends I have are friends for life, right? Some of them who I know right from my childhood years. So it's not that I have tons of friends. I'm not on social media. So I'm not a big, other than LinkedIn, I don't think I have any social media presence, so to speak. But I feel what's important is that in my professional realm, I think how it has helped me is that, because I know every day when I go out to work, I'm looking at it, how can I make a difference today? Right? So as part of your, work, as part of your professional commitments, you have no choice but to be at least seemingly. So that's what I'm saying. I know there's a very difficult for people to comprehend, but I still consider myself to be a classic introvert. And I think that's side of, and I'm perfectly fine with that, very honestly. It's not something that, so you'll never see me going out, and I'm not a party person. I'm not somebody who can, whenever I go for any of these conferences or events or engage with people, it's always a two-way thing. I feel that, okay, here's something where, I can add some value to myself. And if I can add whatever value in my own way, that gives me happiness.
Interesting. And you mentioned your knack for languages, or rather interest in languages. And you said Hindi is something. Interestingly, you mentioned about Marathi, Hindi and English, but you did not mention Malayalam.
So Malayalam, yes, is my mother tongue. I can speak. I can read a little. I cannot write for nuts. I can speak very fluently. I picked up Malayalam language because of my love for the movies. And I think I can speak fairly well.
I agree. Malayalam movies are amongst the best.
Oh yeah.
They are my favorites. The content.
Oh, absolutely.
Malayalam is, they are so realistic. Malayalam and Marathi movies.
Correct.
I really love both of them.
Very rich in content.
So I can't understand either of them very fluently, but the subtitles and the dubbing helps me.
Yeah.
But the content is way superior than any of the other movies, etc. फिर तो अच्छा है आपको हिंदी पसंद है, तो हम कुछ जो है वो डिस्कशन अपना हिंदी में भी करेंगे, बिकॉज मुझे भी हिंदी बोलनी बहुत अच्छी लगती है. मैं लखनऊ से आता हूँ और मुझे कई बार लगता है कि मैं हिंदी में उतना बात नहीं करता जितना करना चाहिए मुझे. और अब जब आपने बोला ही है कि आपको हिंदी पसंद है, तो कुछ तो अब हम हिंदी में भी बात करेंगे. तो अब मुझे ये बताइए कि जैसे आपको लगा कि आपका एक करियर पाथ है, यू हैड दैट प्रेशर अपनी सिस्टर की तरफ से,
सिबलिंग्स से,
सिबलिंग्स का एक प्रेशर था, और वो मिडिल चाइल्ड वाला जो एक फिनोमिनन होता है, वो फिनोमिनन एक्चुअली यंगेस्ट वाले के लिए भी होता है। और मेरे पर जैसे आपके ऊपर आपकी सिस्टर का प्रेशर था, टॉपर एंड एक्सेट्रा, मेरा प्रेशर मेरे गर्लफ्रेंड का था। वो टॉपर हुआ करती थी और मैं नहीं, तो मेरा भी स्ट्रगल रहता था कि इसी तरह टॉप 10 में रहे। स्कूल में भी वैसे ही रहा। लेकिन ये बताएं कि आपको कभी ऐसा अपने पे डाउट हुआ कि मैं आगे जाके लाइफ में कुछ कर भी सकती हूँ कि नहीं कर सकती हूँ, कुछ अचीव कर सकते हैं? दिल में ख्वाहिश तो बहुत है, लेकिन ये कभी डाउट आता था कि मैं कुछ कर भी पाऊंगी? आपके मन में डाउट, आपके परिवार में डाउट कि ये कभी शायद कुछ कर भी पाएगी कि नहीं कर पाएगी? तो बहुत स्ट्रगल करके टॉप 10 में आती है, तो हार्डवर्क बहुत करती है बेचारी।
करेक्ट।
लेकिन ये कभी कुछ कर पाएगी कि नहीं कर पाएगी? आपको कभी लगा कि मैं कभी कुछ कर पाऊंगी कि नहीं कर पाऊंगी?
बहुत सारे डाउट्स थे। लाइक आई सेड, आई थिंक स्कूल के समय तो मैं यही सोचती थी कि अगर मैं कोई छोटा मोटा जॉब भी मिले एंड आई कैन डू समथिंग, अच्छा रहेगा। परिवार वालों के सोच भी ऐसी थी कि वो लोग ऑफ कोर्स प्रोत्साहित करते थे मुझे, बट कहीं ना कहीं उनके मन में तो था कि पता नहीं इसका लाइफ में क्या होगा, क्योंकि मेरी बड़ी बहन और छोटा भाई दोनों इंजीनियर्स थे और उन लोग का तो प्रीटी मच सेट था, तो पता नहीं ये कर पाएगी कि नहीं। बट हाँ, एक चीज़ है, उनको इतना तो पता था कि जहाँ पे भी मैं जो भी करूँ पूरा दिल लगा के करूँ, I'll give it my all. So that aspect, I think, उनके लिए was encouraging that she will do the best she can, right? वो जितना उससे हो सके वो करेगी. So honestly, aspirations, really speaking, वो उम्र में कुछ खास थे नहीं, if I have to be very honest. इतना ही था कि जो मैं करूँ इतने अच्छे से करूँ कि you can leave a mark for yourself, right? So I think वो करते करते is whatever I have, मेरा भी 29 years of career में जो भी मैंने थोड़ा बहुत achieve किया है is largely been because I want to quote Rumi, and I'll say this in Hindi. Wherever you stand, be the soul of the place. Right? So I think that again has left a deep impact to say कि आप जो भी करें इतने अच्छे से करें कि सक्सेस तो आना ही है. Right? You do so well with whatever that you are doing. I give a simple example when I speak to people within my teams or different functions. I say each of us have a role in the jigsaw puzzle. In the entire organizational structure, everyone has a role to play, and if each one is to play that role so beautifully, where you own what you are doing. तो आई थिंक मेरे अंदर ये था कि मैं जो भी करूं मैं रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लूं, उसकी पूरी तरह ओन करूं कि मेरा ये, रादर देन गेटिंग इनटू अ ब्लेम गेम, कि मैं ये नहीं सोचने, मतलब मैंने बहुत पहले ही छोड़ दिया सोचने कि मैं क्यों इतनी इंटेलिजेंट नहीं हूं मेरे भाई या बहन के जितना. और सो आई थिंक बहुत ही वंस आई फिनिश स्कूल एंड कॉलेज, मेरा ये था कि मुझे किसी के साथ अभी compete करना ही नहीं है. Right? My competition has to be with myself. So am I better today than what I was yesterday? And can I be better tomorrow than what I am today? So this is something which has really kept me going in terms of everything that I do. I've stopped. I mean, मुझे याद भी नहीं है कि मैं कब किसी के साथ अच्छा इसको ये मिला या it didn't bother me. It didn't matter to me. What mattered to me is am I doing well, and if I'm not doing well, so ये एक जो मैं करती थी बहुत early in my career से, every evening after I'm done with the day and about to go to sleep, I sort of review the whole day. How did the day go by? What have I learned from today? What could I have done better? Right? Something that I've done well in my own mind, I think, okay, good, you handled the situation well. But if there was something I feel that I could have done better, then I remind myself that, hey, this is a learning. So I think that kind of a self-review has helped in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I think that is something which has kept me going from that perspective.
तो ये मुझे लाता है नेक्स्ट सवाल पे कि आप जब अपने पास को देखें तो उसमें आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे अपने आप को कि बेटा बहुत अच्छा किया तुमने, वो तूने बहुत अच्छा किया था, और दूसरा कि बेटा इसको अगर थोड़ा डिफरेंटली किया होता ना तो शायद बेटर था. तो कोई 2 इंसिडेंट अगर आप बता सकें जिसमें आपको लगे कि आपने उस उम्र के होते हुए भी आपने वो सिचुएशन बहुत अच्छे से हैंडल करी, या फिर आप उसको बोलना चाहेंगे यार बेटा इसको थोड़ा सा डिफरेंटली कर लेती?
तो ऐसे इंस्टेंसेस तो काफ़ी सारे हैं, बट इन टर्म्स ऑफ जो अच्छा किया मैंने इज़ द फैक्ट दैट लाइक आई वाज सेइंग, जो जब मैं मैथ्स में अच्छी नहीं थी और मुझे पढ़ाई बहुत ज़्यादा करनी थी टू गेट गुड एटलीस्ट गेट डिसेंट स्कोर्स, मतलब जितना मैंने मेहनत किया है, मेरी मॉम मेरे को आके बोलती थी बेटा अभी कम कर दो, ठीक है, लाइक गो टू स्लीप नाउ, राइट? तो मेरा ये था नहीं मुझे करना है टाइप. सो बट व्हेन आई लुक बैक आई थिंक मैं अपने यंगर सेल्फ को यही कहूँगी कि नो मैटर व्हाट द सर्कमस्टेंसेस, आपने उस चीज़ को यू डिड नॉट लूज होप, राइट? एंड यू केप्ट गोइंग. आई थिंक दैट हेल्प्ड इन अ लॉट ऑफ वेज. What I would tell my younger self, I think younger self को मैं यही कहूँगी कि maybe you shouldn't have doubted yourself so much, right? You don't have to be so critical of yourself. I had a lot of self-doubts, tons of self-doubts. I think वो जो कहते हैं imposter syndrome,
yes.
I've suffered with that imposter syndrome for a long part of my life, good part of my life in terms of तो या आई थिंक ये दो चीजें मैं डेफिनेटली,
आई थिंक ये एक बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट आपने बोला कि सेल्फ डाउट उस एज पे बहुत लोगों को और काफी स्ट्रांगली हिट करता है. और उस समय जिस तरह से आप अपने आप को कंडक्ट करके और सेल्फ डाउट से बाहर निकाल के अपने पे विश्वास करके और आगे बढ़ सकते हैं, आई थिंक वो एक प्रतीक है जो आपने किया, आपने करके दिखाया. और वो चीज बहुत लोगों को, आज के बच्चों को हो चाहे यंगस्टर्स हो चाहे जो भी हो, ये जो सेल्फ डाउट है आई थिंक उसको जिंदगी से निकाल के, करेक्ट, और अपने पे विश्वास करके. और दो चीजें आपने बोली जो मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी कि एक तो मेहनत करना, हार्ड वर्क जो है वो किसी भी सिचुएशन को बदल सकता है, करेक्ट. और दूसरा कि बहुत अच्छा करने के बजाय अगर वो चीज दिल से करी जाए तो दैट विल मेक अ बिग डिफरेंस. सो आई थिंक दैट्स अ ब्रिलियंट टेक अवे दैट आई हैव फ्रॉम व्हाट यू टोल्ड अस टुडे.
थैंक यू. जो
आपने अपने आप को सेल्फ डाउट वाला इंट्रोवर्ट अगर हम उस बच्चे को देखें और आज आपको देखें एक कॉन्फिडेंट जिसको लोग समझते हैं कि ये शायद एक्सट्रोवर्ट होंगी, एन अचीवर, वो आई थिंक मुझे यही समझ में आया कि आपका हार्ड वर्क और आपने दिल लगा के किया जो भी किया. That's a amazing sort of a journey.
Yeah, I think it's like saying that when you put into any work your heart, mind, body and soul, the results are bound to be magical, no matter what you do, right? And at times there could be success, at times there could be that you've not really succeeded in what you're doing, but in the end result, there's this phrase in the Bhagavad Gita, कर्म कर फल की चिंता मत कर. Correct. Right? I think for each of us it's about do the best you can and leave the rest to God.
Correct.
So I think one principle which or rather one philosophy which I believed in life, there are just two people you need to believe in, yourself and the Almighty above.
Excellent.
If you're able to do that, I think nothing else matters. And there will be times when there will be a lot of insurmountable challenges, lot of doubts, lot of problems if one were to speak.
Yes.
But if you keep that, like there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, that, and again, I think this people who know me both personally and professionally would say my favorite phrase again has been, one is be the change you want to see.
Sure.
The famous Mahatma Gandhi quote, right? In everything, see how you can be the change maker. And the other is that hope makes the world go round. So no matter how tough a situation, this too shall pass. Because through the darkest hours is where one, becomes a lot more. So I think that that is something which has kept me going despite all my doubts. I used to think I'm a complete dimwit because I was not good in maths. But let me tell you something very interesting, Abhijit. My love for numbers. Today, if you ask me, anybody who knows me well professionally and has worked with me, nobody can believe that I was not good with numbers. my love for numbers or my appreciation for numbers came in when I got into the workplace. And in my professional life, I remember very early in my career, the first few years, maybe a couple of years that I worked in an individual contributor role, then I got this opportunity to work for a startup company to head the HR function. Now, for a typical startup company, you know, so I was like very excited. I've never done this role. Let me see how it goes. And it was tough. It was not easy, right? Because suddenly when you transition into a role without understanding the whole thing, there were a lot of learnings, and I remember my CEO of that company, who was the promoter CEO, said that, you know, I would love for you to even get into understanding the business, right? So I want you to be part of business discussions. And this I'm talking about way back in early 2000.
Sure.
For me, that was really a game changer where I started understanding numbers, how business is actually. And I think those years were definitely transformative to say. And today I'm able to understand numbers probably so well that nobody will ever believe that I was not good at. So the fear of exams, the fear of maths as a subject was completely out of the window, right? When I actually started. And now when I look at it, I think, you know, I don't know why I was so scared of maths. So that reminds me, that's one thing I would tell my younger self, that, you know, nothing to be really fearful of.
Nothing in this
right?
world.
Nothing in this world.
Nothing in this
Because
world.
if you look at every experience and every experience teaching you something, right? You'll be appreciative of it so much more.
Correct.
But, you know, hindsight vision is always 2020.
Correct. Yes, I know. I mean, you can say a lot, but at that point in time, nobody understands the situation that you were in, were in, right? So
absolutely.
Many people can give the ज्ञान, but I think ultimately जो आप उस समय उस स्थिति में होते हैं, तब जब आप जो सोच के करते हैं, आई थिंक वो उस समय के लिए वो बेस्ट था.
करेक्ट.
बाद में आप बोल सकते हैं कि ऐसा भी कर सकते थे, वैसा भी कर सकते थे.
और हर चीज, हर इंसान हमारे लाइफ में हमको कुछ सिखाने के लिए आता है.
करेक्ट.
राइट. अच्छे एक्सपीरियंसेस हमको अच्छे मेमोरीज देते हैं. बुरे एक्सपीरियंसेस टीच यू गुड लेसन्स, राइट? जो आप सीखते हैं, अच्छा ये मैंने गलती की, ये मैं आइंदा ये गलती नहीं करूंगी. और यू लर्न फ्रॉम अदर पीपल्स मिस्टेक्स.
तो ऐसी एक गलती बताइए.
आई थिंक द ईयर वाज 2008. Subprime crisis time. I was heading the HR for a software edtech company, education technology company, and we were going through a kind of a crisis situation. So I'll tell you a personal galti which I made. Okay, more from. And I remember that was the time I had a home loan and a vehicle loan. Right, the first recession that I'm seeing in my entire career.
Sure.
And I was like, oh my God, if I could just come out of the situation, I will make sure that my first objective would be to go debt free. Right? Never have two loans at the same time.
Coming to your professional life, right? Obviously, your childhood was very transformative, and how you were as a child versus how you are as a manager and a senior manager. Tell us that, what do you consider in your professional life as your biggest achievement? And put it in two ways. One is the literal achievement, that I got this massive promotion, so I consider that as from a literal perspective, that is the biggest achievement. The second is that from a perspective of that, so it may not be about a promotion, it may not be about anything that you achieved as a designation, as anything from that perspective, but you feel that this was my biggest achievement in my professional life, right? So two perspectives, that this is what I consider as my biggest, literally, a massive raise that I got because everybody believed that I was this great, and that is why I got this massive promotion or massive salary hike, or so very literal terms. The other is more figurative.
One thing which I hold very close to my heart is, so way back in 2016, LinkedIn had launched this in APAC, Conscious Business Leadership Awards. And I had just joined LinkedIn about 6-7 months prior to that. So I remember receiving a mail and somebody asking me to nominate myself. And I thought it was a prank call. A hoax message. I'm not even there on LinkedIn. Who are they fooling, kind of? And I didn't really respond initially. Then that person who was writing persisted. And I finally sent in this. So honestly, I didn't even know at that point of time what is the Conscious Business Leadership Awards. And to cut a long story short, I think I sent in my nominations. While I had to not speak for myself, I also had to give references of colleagues and seniors who I've worked with. And I did that. I sent mails out to them thinking if they send it, great. And I forgot about it. And a couple of months later, I get this notification that I'm actually one of the finalists. That came as a surprise to me. Because I realized for the first time that, there are things which I'm probably doing. Yeah, so while I was on LinkedIn, I think there were a couple of, what they write as recommendations which had come in.
Sure.
From some of the ex-colleagues and people who I'd worked with. And then it struck me that maybe that may have led them to sort of nominate for this. But I think I look back and I think that, I've, out of various accolades, whatever that I've received, I hold this dear to my heart. Because this is something which really embodies that, this stands for those values that one truly believes in. And for me, even when I took to coaching, and I think even when I'm speaking at a lot of these HR forums and all that, this is a subject very close to my heart. Because I truly believe that the world could be so much of a better place if we have conscious leaders in all walks of lives. And because immediately succeeding it, I also featured in, in one of their coffee table books as a thought leader, again in the LinkedIn. So I think this is something which I feel was a moment of high because of, I never realized that this is something which one could sort of be recognized for.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So
tell me one more thing, that today there are enough number of challenges, right? There are pressure from the top management about certain performances and etc. Sometimes there must have been a conflict situation. What the management or your CEO expects you to do versus what your own conscience actually tells you to do. There must have been situations of that conflict.
Right? Oh, absolutely.
Where you don't agree with what they're asking you to do, but they expect you to do that, right? So how do you tackle a situation like that?
So I think one instance is what I shared during 2008, right? The subprime crisis, where everyone else in the room had a different viewpoint, right? They were like, okay, every company is doing it. What is there to think so much and so on? There are countless examples. I think for one to be able to influence, right? You need to have a better understanding of the business. You need to also understand the nuances of when a person is sharing something, they're coming from a perspective. So for you to be able to influence the opposite person, so whether it's a CEO or anybody, I would look at it, any leader in position of power, I think it is being able to put across your viewpoint with rationale, right? As to why you're saying what you're saying. So for example, several years back, I think this would have been early years of my career as an HR leader. There was a situation where, one of the business heads had come back saying he was leading the sales function. And he said, we need people to fulfill a certain business. We need them as of yesterday. Now, the reality is when you hire people, you need to have people serving their notice and all that and come. And during the discussion, I said, while we would all love to have people as of yesterday, the reality is people need to complete their professional commitments and then come on board. And he was like, but we can't say no to business. I said, yeah, but the minute we take shortcuts, right, it is not going to help us in the long run. So it meant that I had to muster all my patience. It meant I had to muster all my courage to say that this is what we need to do because this is the right thing to do. So I think as professionals, there'll be umpteen occasions where each of us are being constantly tested. Are you able to stand up and say, this is the right thing to do, and this is why you're saying it is the right thing to do? Especially I believe when you're playing in the role of HR, you're in a way the conscience keeper of the organization, right? You've got to come up with ways where you're doing the right thing and saying the right thing, because there would be other business leaders who may have, and each one has a different perspective. but how are you able to convey in a way that they are also able to see the side of why you're saying? Because eventually we're all working in the organizational interest, right? So yeah, I mean, Abhijit, there have been tons of instances, and I think at the end of the day, it is about making sure that when you say what you have to say, you're saying it with the truest intent. I always believe when you come up with a purity of intent, you're bound to get. I've worked with amazing leaders. I've largely worked with heads of organization, be it promoters, CEOs, chairman and managing directors across several years that I've worked with. And I can say it's so easy to reason with everyone, because if they understand that you're speaking with conviction, B, you're speaking with what is in the right interest of the organization.
Correct.
Right? This during the subprime crisis, and I'll actually share an instance. During the subprime crisis, we actually had taken a decision that the senior management above a certain grade, they would have had to take a pay cut of 30%, so that we didn't have to do further any job cuts and so on. And when we took that decision, I remember we were transparent with people. Many a times people feel, oh, maybe people down the line may not. I said, no, the more transparent you are, the more open you are, people will appreciate and understand.
Sure.
And when I was able to actually show them that, this is how it really, and we are doing it and this is how it really works, then they're able to relate to it and say, yeah, okay, we sometimes underestimate people thinking, oh, maybe they can't take the bad news. People can take. If you are being honest and, upfront as to why you're doing. So I think being forthright is literally can be an absolute pivotal part of when you're dealing with people. Excellent. Be honest and upfront, and people will appreciate it.
So I completely can visualize that you have been absolutely upfront in speaking your mind and what you believe in, that you have communicated that very clear and openly. Has there been a situation where you had to do something, forced to do something maybe, which you did not believe in, right? But you had to do it. Have you ever done that?
Not really.
Not really. You have basically communicated exactly how you feel, what you feel, and you have just gone ahead and done that.
And I think I've got massive support from them.
Excellent.
Right? So I'll tell you, and none of these things happen overnight. Today, for you to have a seat at the table, today for you to have, the years of everyone who matter within this, is a lot of hard work.
Yes.
Right? It's a lot of hard work to reach there and say that, so when you say you're speaking with substance,
correct,
you're not just speaking in thin air,
correct,
you're speaking with conviction, and you're able to show that, the repercussions of taking a converse decision. See, many a times I think what happens is in the corporate workplaces, as we all know, very rarely do you come across people who think that, okay, the person, whoever's in the chair, you just need to chime into whatever the person is saying. But that's not true.
Sure.
I think people look for, and at least I can speak from my experience over the last 24 years that I've been leading the HR function, that I've dealt with people who are willing to hear contrarian views with rationale, of course, and they're willing to agree to it, that yes, I think this makes sense. But many times people shy away from thinking, oh, will I not sound,
conformist?
Yeah. It's not necessary to be a conformist.
Yes.
You've got a viewpoint, and that doesn't mean I'm saying one has to be a rebel with or without a cause. But where there is a reason where you have a very differing view, speak your mind.
Correct.
And you will find the people listening to you. So, yeah, I think in my entire corporate career, I don't think I was ever forced to. Maybe that's because I think very early in my career, I started leading the HR function also. So yeah, and fortunately, I've never had a situation where I was told, it's this way or the highway kind of, right? That's not happened.
Correct. No, that's brilliant because, as a CEO journey, and you have actually very, very brilliantly put it across that how an introvert girl today stands her place, right? And that's been the hallmark of your success in your professional life, in your personal life, that you have always spoken your mind, what you truly believe. as long as you have shown very clear intentions,
Right.
that my intentions are very clean and clear,
Right.
and that is the reason why I speak what I speak, and speak with not only conviction but also with reasoning.
Right.
That why I believe
True.
that this is to be the thing. So I take that as a great learning, and learning not just for me but for our listeners and viewers as well, that standing up for your
What you believe in.
what you believe in.
Yeah.
I think as long as you do it with conviction, with clarity, and with reasoning, right?
Yeah.
It makes you don't have to really,
True.
follow or be a conformist
Yeah.
at all,
Correct.
right? For success in
It's
life.
okay to stand apart and,
Yes.
So for me, the journey from being the black sheep of the family,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
to whatever little I've achieved today is largely, like I said, is those value systems which my parents have instilled, and I hold them very dear to me. And I think if each of us could have different values that we truly believe in,
Correct.
it's just holding close to those values, no
Yes.
matter what the situation.
Yes.
There may be times that, I'll tell you, Abhijit, I think it's been ages that I've stopped thinking that, oh my God, I need to do something so that I get a good appraisal or or I need to be recognized. It is about do what makes you happy.
Today, what is the biggest challenge that you face in your organization as a manager?
I think the biggest challenge when we are dealing with people, we are dealing with, so I represent an IT services organization. So I think we're dealing with the Gen Zs. We're dealing with, a generation which, let me tell you, I have huge respect for the Gen Zs.
Yes.
Primarily because I think this is a generation who has seen a lot more turbulent times than what any of our previous generations have
Yes.
seen. Many of them are very, very well informed. Okay.
Correct.
Have a mind of their own.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I think what they look for is people who can show them a purpose of what they are doing.
Okay.
I would look at my generation as, we were told certain things, so we started doing certain things, and it took us time to, make our. But I think the Gen Zs are all people who want to see a purpose to what they are doing. And I think the biggest challenge, I wouldn't really call this a challenge, is to see, for me as an HR leader would be to see how everyone within the organization, in my organization, all the mid-level leaders, the senior leaders, everyone is aligned to the fact that, I keep telling this to my HR teams. Our jobs is to see that we can have people come with a spring in their step when they come to work on a Monday morning, whether physically in office or working remotely. So how can each of the leaders within the organization have that similar kind of a value system? That how do we create? And I think we have done a fair good amount of work in that space. Today, our gender diversity stands at about 45%, right? And I feel really good about that because it's been a lot of collective efforts of everyone put together. It's not just any one function in isolation. So it's about how we can create, the alignment of, the business goals with the people goals. How can we fulfill people's aspirations? Today, I feel an individual who joins the organization, we should be able to make his or her career so much more enriched, right? Some of the focused people development programs that we have, leadership development programs that we have actually gone a long way in creating, today 75% of our mid-level leaders are all homegrown. And that has happened because of the continuous efforts of making sure that, we want people to come to the workplace with a spring in their step, making sure that they are getting opportunities to learn, grow, become the best version of themselves, right? So even when they leave tomorrow and they are in a way still evangelizing the organization. Hey, you know what? I learned this here. I feel good about the time I spend there, right? So yeah, if you look at it, I'm not looking at it so much as a challenge, but as an opportunity to really make a difference. So I think that's something which gives me I derive a lot of personal satisfaction when we're able to do it. Facilitating a lot of programs myself. Since I'm an executive coach, I do a lot of coaching within the organization too. So I think, these are some things which I feel,
Today there are, a lot of, like even the Prime Minister said, that skilling the workforce
Yep.
is super, super critical. And in fact, he made the comment that if he was not the Prime Minister, he would have preferred to be the skilling minister, right? What is the kind of need that you see within your organization for skilling? Is there a need that you see in your organization that this is the kind of skilling that I would like for my, whether it is very job-oriented, technical kind of skilling, or it might be soft skill skilling? Where is the need that you see there?
Yeah, so I think since we work with a lot of, the average age, in my organization is about 27, 28. And we have actually been having a kind of, yes, we do a lot of lateral hiring, but we also do a lot of entry-level hiring, grooming them, putting them through completely. So these could be, for example, for one of our verticals, which is in the F&A space, right? So we make sure that we are getting people skilled with certain levels of skill sets. So they may have an X level up to a certain level. And to build on those skills, we have an internal sort of the paraphernalia in place to make sure that we are imparting both technical skills, soft skills, functional skills as required. And I think this is so the people skills come in once they are ready to transition from an individual contributor role to move into a people management role. But in an IC level also, I think a lot of the skills that we're doing, we've got a very, very focused L&D team, which is really doing some phenomenal work in this space for making sure that we are ready to take on, So yeah, I think skilling is an inherent part. How can we build in those competencies is something which we are constantly thinking of enriching people with. So yeah, that's an integral part.
Excellent. And final question, post this, what's next for you? I'm not saying the next organization, next designation, but what's next?
Now, that's a good question. I think what next for me would be in terms of, being in the people. I look at HR as being in the people business, right? Everything is about people. So how can I make a difference? Every time I ask myself this question, every morning when I wake up, that what else can I do to enrich myself so that I can be of value? So over the years, I've been doing a lot of certification programs. One of the things I've not done so far is, and that's a dream. And while I say this, I don't know. Yeah, I hope that in a way it acts as a way to manifest it, is to do a PhD program.
Oh, wow.
So, but I know it requires a whole lot of commitment, dedication, and years of this. But yeah, that is something I would love to do. And actually a PhD in conscious leadership. I think, so if I could do that, I think that would be a...
So I think you should manifest from here onwards so that you start looking for a guide for a university where you can do that PhD.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, knowing you now today, we know that once you have thought about it, right, that you will get on with it.
I hope so.
And maybe it was a dream till 1 hour back, but now that you'll start
I've
working
spelled it
on
out. Yeah.
Yes, you have put it out there, right? So I think you'll start working on it
I
to
hope
look for a guide and the university and the right place to actually go ahead and do it, right? And I shall be keeping a track. Then you start writing as Dr. Lolly.
Well, I don't know.
Yes. But thank you so much. I mean, it was such a brilliant conversation. And like it is our objective that people learn a lot about life skills, right? Through the experiences and journey of the people whom we talk to.
Right.
Today has been a very, very brilliant conversation for us where we have learned a lot. And especially for people who possibly find themselves confused and that literally everybody, right?
Yeah.
Who find themselves confused at various crossroads, that how and why and what should they do to really find their path, etc. Right? So thank you so much, Lolly.
Thank you, Abhijit.
and I'm just waiting to call you Dr. Lolly soon.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
Abhijit.
yes.
Such a pleasure. And thank you for having me over. I've loved this conversation. that
Thank
we've
you.
had.